Have you ever felt like the universe was conspiring against you? Like no matter how hard you tried, the cards were stacked against you and there was no way out. I want to tell you about the day I was sitting on the floor of my empty apartment in Chicago, listening to the final eviction notice being taped to my door. That sound, that simple sound of Scotch tape against wood, it might as well have been a gunshot. My name is Elise Carter, and 3 years ago, I had hit absolute rock bottom. I had just lost my marketing job of 8 years due to company downsizing. My relationship of 5 years had ended when my partner decided they needed space. My savings were depleted after months of unemployment. And now, I was 48 hours away from being homeless. But what I'm about to share with you isn't just another sad story. This is about how that moment on my apartment floor became the catalyst for the most profound transformation of my life. A transformation that would lead me to manifest not just financial abundance beyond what I'd ever imagined, but also deep love, purpose, and a sense of peace I never knew was possible. And it all started with a book I almost threw away. If you're watching this right now, I believe it's not by accident. Maybe you're facing your own version of rock bottom. Or perhaps you're just feeling stuck, wondering if there's more to life than the daily grind. Whatever brought you here, I want you to know that this video could be the synchronicity you've been waiting for. I'm going to share exactly how I went from that empty apartment to living a life that once seemed impossible, all through understanding and applying the law of attraction in ways that change everything. Stay with me until the end because I'll reveal the one critical mistake almost everyone makes when trying to manifest their desires, a mistake that kept me stuck for months until I discovered the simple shift that changed everything. Let me take you back to that apartment floor. I remember the silence that followed after the footsteps of the building manager faded away. I sat there surrounded by the few possessions I hadn't sold, a suitcase of clothes, a plant my mother had given me years ago that somehow survived my neglect, and a box of books I couldn't bear to part with. My phone buzzed with another rejection email from a job application. The screen was cracked. I couldn't afford to fix it. I had $187 in my bank account. My credit cards were maxed out. And the worst part? I had no one to call. My pride had kept me from telling friends and family just how bad things had gotten. I picked up my phone to check apartment listings I couldn't afford when I accidentally knocked over that box of books. They spilled across the floor, and one particular book landed open right in front of me. It was something my aunt had given me years ago that I'd never bothered to read, The Secret by Rhonda Byrne. I almost laughed at the irony. A book about manifesting abundance when I couldn't even manifest next month's rent? But with nowhere to go and nothing to lose, I started reading, and I read and read all night. Something stirred inside me as I turned those pages. Not hope exactly, I was too numb for hope. But perhaps curiosity? Was it possible that my thoughts had created this reality? And if so, could new thoughts create a different one? That night, exhausted and desperate, I made a decision that would change everything. I decided to surrender to this idea completely. Not half-heartedly. Not skeptically. I would give myself fully to the principles in this book because, honestly, my way clearly wasn't working. The next morning, instead of waking up in panic as I had for months, I forced myself to sit quietly for 10 minutes. I closed my eyes and, feeling slightly ridiculous, began to visualize a different reality. I imagined having a place to live, nothing fancy, just safe and comfortable. I imagined having work that would cover my bills. I focused on how it would feel, the relief, the security, the gratitude. I had no idea how these things would happen. I had 48 hours until eviction. But something had shifted in me, a willingness to believe that perhaps the universe wasn't against me after all. That morning, I also did something that felt counterintuitive. I cleaned my empty apartment. Why clean a place I was about to leave? I don't know why, but something inside me said that treating my current space with care was important. As I wiped down counters and swept floors, I whispered thank you to the apartment for sheltering me, even as I prepared to leave it. Then I did something even more bizarre. I wrote a gratitude list. What could I possibly be grateful for? Well, I still had my health. I had education and skills. I had that resilient plant. I had the ability to start over. The list was short, but it was a start. What happened next wasn't some magical overnight transformation. There was no check in the mail or a long-lost relative leaving me an inheritance. but there was a phone call. An old colleague from my marketing days called out of the blue. She wasn't offering a job, but she knew someone who needed help moving that weekend. It would pay $200, enough for a few nights at a cheap motel while I figured out my next steps. Was it coincidence? Maybe, but it was also the first time in months that an opportunity had appeared right when I needed it most. I'd be lying if I said my faith in the law of attraction was immediate and unwavering. It wasn't. The next few months were a roller coaster of tiny victories followed by crushing doubts. I found temporary housing in a shared apartment with 3 roommates in Austin, far from ideal for someone in their late 30s who'd been living alone for years. I picked up gig work, driving for rideshare companies, walking dogs, anything to keep money coming in. But it was barely enough. There were nights I cried myself to sleep, wondering if I was deluding myself. The gap between my visualization sessions and my reality seemed impossibly wide. I remember one particularly low night, sitting in my tiny shared room, listening to my roommates arguing in the kitchen. I had just received another rejection for a job I was perfect for. I picked up The Secret and nearly threw it across the room. This is nonsense. I'm visualizing. I'm being grateful. I'm trying to maintain positive thoughts. So where is all this abundance I'm supposed to be manifesting? That night, I turned to the internet, searching for answers. And I found something that would become crucial to my journey. A video by Dr. Joe Dispenza explaining how our brains are wired to keep us in familiar emotional states, even negative ones. He talked about how we need to not just think differently, but feel differently, consistently, before our reality can change. Something clicked for me. I had been going through the motions, doing the visualization exercises, saying affirmations, but I was still feeling desperate, anxious, and defeated most of the time. My dominant emotional state hadn't changed. The next morning, I started a new practice. Instead of just visualizing better circumstances, I began to deliberately generate feelings of security, abundance, and joy, even when everything around me contradicted those feelings. It felt like lying to myself at first. How could I feel abundant with $32 in my account? How could I feel secure with no permanent home? But I persisted. I started small. I would hold my cup of morning coffee, a simple luxury I could still afford, and allow myself to feel genuine gratitude and abundance in that moment. I would walk in a nearby park and consciously generate feelings of freedom and peace. I would look at the sky and feel connected to something larger than my problems. Gradually, something began to shift. Not my external circumstances, not yet, but my relationship to them. Bad things would happen, and they wouldn't destroy me for days anymore. I began to recover more quickly, to maintain my practice despite setbacks. 3 months after my eviction, I was still struggling financially, but something had changed internally. I had established a daily routine of meditation, visualization, and consciously generating positive emotional states. I was becoming more consistent. I had also started keeping a synchronicity journal, noting down any coincidences or unexpected opportunities that came my way, no matter how small. Looking back at this journal became my lifeline on hard days, showing me that perhaps something was working after all. One day, while driving a rideshare passenger, I noticed she was reading Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Dr. Joe Dispenza, the same author whose videos had helped me so much. "Great book," I said, making conversation. She looked up, surprised. "You've read it?" That simple exchange led to a conversation that would change everything. The woman, Marianne, turned out to be the founder of a digital marketing agency focused on wellness brands. She mentioned they were looking for someone with marketing experience who really understood the personal development space. "That's me," I said, with a confidence that surprised even myself. "I've lived it." 2 days later, I interviewed with her team. A week after that, I had a job offer, with a salary that would allow me to get my own place again. The position was remote, with flexible hours, something I'd always wanted but never had in my corporate job. Was this just a lucky break? Perhaps. But it was also the first time in my professional life that I'd spoken openly about my interest in personal development and spiritual principles. In my previous corporate environments, I'd kept that part of myself hidden, worried it would seem too woo. Yet it was precisely that authentic connection that had created this opportunity. With stable income came a profound sense of relief. I found a small but lovely apartment in Austin and began to rebuild my life. But something had fundamentally changed in me. I wasn't interested in just recreating my old life. I had glimpsed something during those hard months, a different way of engaging with reality, a different way of creating my experience. I doubled down on my law of attraction practices, but with an important difference. I was no longer practicing from a place of lack or desperation. I was practicing from a place of curiosity and expansion. My manifestations began to accelerate. It wasn't just about material things, although those came too: a new car when mine finally broke down beyond repair, opportunities to travel for work, eventually even buying my own home. But more importantly, I began manifesting experiences and connections I'd always wanted. I reconnected with old friends in ways that were deeper and more authentic than before. I started dating again, but with a clear sense of what I wanted in a relationship rather than from fear of being alone. I began writing about my experiences and sharing them online, building a community of people interested in conscious creation. Throughout this process, I discovered something crucial about the law of attraction that many books don't emphasize enough. It's not just about attracting things or circumstances. It's about becoming the person who is aligned with those things and circumstances. Let me explain. Here's where I need to share the critical mistake I mentioned earlier, the one that keeps so many people stuck in manifestation limbo. For months, even as I practiced visualization and gratitude, I was trying to use the law of attraction to fix what I perceived as wrong with my life. I was coming from a place of, this isn't right and needs to be fixed. But the breakthrough came when I realized the law of attraction isn't about fixing what's wrong. It's about aligning with what's right, even before it physically exists. The mistake is focusing on the absence of what you want rather than the presence of it in energy form. Let me give you a practical example. When I was desperately trying to manifest a new job, my thoughts and feelings were dominated by, I need a job because not having one is terrible. Even when I visualized having a job, the emotional energy behind it was fear of remaining unemployed. The shift happened when I started operating as if abundance was already my reality on an energetic level. I began showing up as the person who was already successful, already secure, already living her purpose, not in a delusional way, but in the way I made decisions, spoke about myself, and most importantly, how I felt on a moment-to-moment basis. I stopped asking, how can I get a better job? And started asking, what would someone who loves their work do right now? I stopped asking, how can I fix my financial problems? And started asking, how does someone who is financially secure interact with money, even when there isn't much of it? This shift, from trying to attract things to fill an emptiness to embodying the reality you desire energetically, was what finally unlocked consistent manifestations in my life. Today, my life looks nothing like it did 3 years ago. That marketing position with Marion's company led to more opportunities. Eventually, I was able to start my own consulting business, working with clients I truly believe in, setting my own hours, and earning more than I ever did in my corporate job. I met Michael, my partner, at a workshop on conscious entrepreneurship. Our relationship is based on growth, mutual support, and shared values, so different from the codependent patterns of my previous relationship. I've created a beautiful home that truly feels like a sanctuary. I've healed relationships with family members I thought were beyond repair. I've even manifested opportunities to speak and teach about my journey, helping others who are where I once was. But the most profound change isn't in my external circumstances. It's in my relationship with reality itself. I no longer see myself as a victim of random events or bad luck. I understand now that my consciousness is creating my experience. Always has been, always will be. This doesn't mean bad things never happen. They do, but I now have tools to move through challenges without being destroyed by them. I understand that even difficulties contain opportunities for expansion if I'm willing to see them. Let me share with you the specific practices that transform my reality, in case they might help you too. Emotional alignment practice. Twice daily, I sit quietly and deliberately generate the emotional state of already having what I desire. I don't just visualize it, I feel it as if it's already happened. This isn't about pretending or denying current reality. It's about accessing the energetic frequency of your desire. Identity shifting. I constantly ask myself, who would I be if I were already living my ideal reality? How would that version of me respond to this situation? Then I act from that place. Synchronicity awareness. I remain alert to meaningful coincidences and unexpected opportunities, no matter how small. I keep a journal of these to strengthen my faith in the process. Gratitude immersion. Beyond just listing things I'm grateful for, I immerse myself in the feeling of gratitude throughout the day, especially for things that haven't manifested physically yet. Consistent consumption. I'm extremely careful about what I feed my mind, the books, videos, music, and conversations I engage with. I choose inputs that reinforce abundance consciousness. Surrender practice. Every night before sleep, I release all attachment to how my desires will manifest. I affirm that the universe/higher intelligence knows better than my conscious mind how to bring my good to me. Service mindset. I look for ways to be of value to others without expectation of return. This keeps me from falling into self-absorption or lack mentality. The beautiful thing about these practices is that they cost nothing. When I was at my lowest point financially, I couldn't afford expensive courses or coaches. Everything I needed was available through books from the library and free resources online. If you're watching this and you're in that dark place, maybe not sitting on an empty apartment floor, but in your own version of rock bottom, I want you to know something. This isn't the end of your story. It might actually be the beginning of the most amazing chapter. The universe hasn't abandoned you. In fact, the challenging circumstances you're facing might be the very catalyst you need to discover who you truly are and what you're capable of creating. The law of attraction isn't just some magical thinking or wishful manifesting. It's about recognizing that your consciousness, your thoughts, feelings, and beliefs is creative. And when you learn to direct that creative power intentionally, reality responds in kind. Every person I admire in the personal development space, from Neville Goddard to Joe Dispenza to Esther Hicks, they all say essentially the same thing in different ways. Your external reality is a reflection of your internal state of being. Change the inner, and the outer must follow. Your transformation might not happen overnight. Mine certainly didn't. There will be doubts, setbacks, and moments when you want to give up. But if you persist, if you keep aligning your energy with what you desire rather than what you fear, the shift will happen. It's law. I believe in you, even if we've never met, because I know what's possible. I've lived it. And if I could go from that apartment floor to where I am today, then the possibilities for your transformation are limitless. If this story has resonated with you in any way, I'd love to hear about it. Comment below with the word aligned if you're ready to start consciously creating your reality. And if you found value in this video, please share it with someone who might need to hear this message right now. Remember, the universe speaks to us through synchronicities, and this video finding its way to you might be one of them. Until next time, keep believing, keep aligning, and watch as the universe conspires in your favor. Thank you for being here with me today.